In the thriving village of Umuaka, where traders prospered and the market never slept, lived a man named Obinna. He was known far and wide, not just for his wealth, but for his charm. Obinna was the kind of man people trusted easily. He dressed well, spoke gently, and carried himself with the confidence of someone who had never known lack. His compound was large, his barns full, and his name respected among elders and traders alike. But what people admired most about Obinna was what they believed to be his devotion to his wife, Ngozi. Ngozi was everything a good wife was expected to be: loyal, respectful, hard-working, and patient. She had stood beside Obinna when he was still struggling, before the wealth came, before the recognition. She knew his story, and she loved him for who he had been, not just who he had become. Together, they built a home filled with warmth and stability. The villagers often pointed to them as an example of what marriage should look like. "If you want peace," the elders would say, "build your home like Obinna and Ngozi." But sometimes, what people see on the outside is not the full story. Because hidden beneath Obinna's calm smile was a desire he had never learned to control. And that desire was about to destroy everything he had built. One market day, as traders shouted and buyers moved from stall to stall, Obinna saw someone who made him pause. Her name was Zainab. She was new to the village. Her beauty was striking, not soft like Ngozi's, but bold, captivating, impossible to ignore. Her laughter carried across the market like music, and her confidence drew attention wherever she went. Obinna watched her longer than he should have. At first, he told himself it meant nothing, just curiosity, just admiration. But admiration, when fed, quickly becomes something else. Over the following weeks, Obinna found reasons to return to the market more often. He would pass Zainab's stall, exchange small greetings, linger longer than necessary. Zainab noticed. And unlike Ngozi, who was quiet and gentle, Zainab enjoyed attention. She welcomed his gaze. She returned his smile. She asked questions. "Are you always this serious?" she teased one afternoon. Obinna laughed. "Only when I'm being watched." She leaned closer. "Then I'll keep watching." That moment should have been enough warning, but Obinna did not walk away. Because some temptations do not come as danger. They come as excitement. And slowly, without realizing it, he stepped into a path that would divide his life in two.
At first, Obinna kept his interactions with Zainab harmless, or so he told himself. Short conversations, passing smiles, small jokes. But secrets do not begin with big decisions. They begin with small permissions. Soon, he began visiting her when the market was quieter. Then he started bringing gifts, fabric, jewelry, small luxuries that spoke louder than words. Zainab did not ask where the gifts came from, and Obinna did not tell her. One evening, as the sun dipped low, she asked him directly,
"Are you married?"
The question hung in the air. Obinna hesitated. In that moment, he had a choice: tell the truth or protect the illusion.
"I was,"
he said slowly.
"but it is complicated."
Zainab studied him carefully. Then she smiled.
"Life is always complicated."
And just like that, a lie was born. From that day forward, Obinna lived two lives. By day, he was the respected husband of Ngozi. By night, he became something else entirely, and with every lie he told, the distance between his two worlds grew wider. It did not take long before Obinna made a decision that crossed the point of no return. He built Zainab a small house on the edge of the village, hidden enough to avoid attention, close enough to visit easily. To Zainab, it felt like commitment. To Obinna, it felt like control. He told himself he could manage both lives, that he was careful, that he was smart, that no one would find out. But the truth is, no one lives two lives forever without consequences. Ngozi began to notice the changes. First, the late nights, the distant conversations, the sudden distractions. She said nothing at first, because love often tries to protect itself from painful truths. But silence does not stop suspicion. It only allows it to grow. One night, as Obinna returned home late, Ngozi sat waiting. Her voice was calm.
"Where have you been?"
Work.
He replied quickly. She looked at him for a long moment, then simply said,
"You have never lied to me before."
Those words should have stopped him, but instead, he lied again. As time passed, maintaining both lives became harder. Zainab began asking questions.
Why can't I visit your main house? Why do you only come at certain times? Who are you hiding from?
Meanwhile, Ngozi's silence turned into quiet pain. She stopped asking questions, stopped smiling as often, stopped looking at him the same way. Obinna felt the tension, but instead of correcting it, he tried to balance it. More lies, more excuses, more secrets. But lies do not fix problems. They multiply them. Then one day, everything changed. It happened in the most unexpected way. Not at the market, not in the open, but inside a small hairdresser's parlor, where stories were shared freely, and secrets often slipped out without warning. The air was warm, filled with the scent of hair oil and the soft hum of dryers. Women sat side by side, braiding, laughing, talking about life as hands moved skillfully through strands of hair. Zainab arrived first. She took a seat, adjusting her wrapper, her usual confidence resting easily on her shoulders. The hairdresser greeted her warmly and began working through her hair, fingers moving in practiced rhythm. Soon after, Ngozi walked in, calm, composed, unaware. She greeted the room politely and sat a few seats away, waiting her turn. At first, nothing felt unusual. Just another day, just another gathering. But then, their eyes met, and something shifted. It was subtle, almost invisible, but undeniable. A simple greeting passed between them, respectful, polite, yet something beneath it lingered, like a question neither of them had yet formed. As the women around them continued talking, Zainab began to speak casually about her life, about a man who had been taking care of her. She smiled as she described him.
He is generous,
She said.
He visits me often, especially in the evenings.
Ngozi's fingers tightened slightly in her lap. Something in her chest stirred. Still, she said nothing. Zainab continued, unaware.
He built me a small house, not far from the village edge.
A pause. This time, Ngozi looked up. Her expression did not change, but her eyes sharpened. Carefully, gently, she asked,
What is his name?
Zainab smiled.
Obinna.
The room did not go silent. The dryers still hummed, the women still talked. But for Ngozi, everything stopped. The name echoed in her mind, not once, but over and over. Still, she remained composed, because some pain is too deep to show immediately.
What does he look like?
Ngozi asked quietly. Zainab laughed lightly, as if describing something obvious.
Tall, well-dressed, speaks softly, like he knows people trust him.
Now it was no longer a question. It was confirmation. Ngozi exhaled slowly. Then, with careful control, she spoke.
My husband is named Obinna.
This time, Zainab's smile faded. Not instantly, but gradually, like light leaving a room. They looked at each other again, not as strangers, but as two women standing on the same truth. No shouting, no accusations, just understanding. Piece by piece, word by word, everything connected. The same gifts, the same schedule, the same voice, the same man. And in that moment, the truth revealed itself, silently, painfully, completely. Ngozi did not shout. Zainab did not cry, because some betrayals are too heavy for noise. They simply sat there, side by side, no longer strangers, no longer unaware, just two women who finally understood everything. That evening, both women waited, not for each other, but for him. The air inside the house was heavy, thick with truth that could no longer be hidden. Ngozi sat upright, her hands folded in her lap, her face calm, but her eyes carried a storm of silent pain. Zainab stood beside her, arms crossed, her usual confidence now sharpened into something colder, something wounded. When Obinna stepped through the doorway, he immediately felt it. Something was wrong. Then he saw them, both of them, standing together, waiting. For the first time, his two worlds did not exist separately. They had collided, violently, completely, and without warning. And there was nowhere left to run. His breath caught in his throat. His mind searched for words, for excuses, for explanations. But none came. Because deep down he knew this was the moment every lie had been leading to. Ngozi spoke first, her voice steady, but breaking beneath the surface.
Was I not enough for you, Obinna?
That question cut deeper than anger ever could. Zainab stepped forward next, her eyes locked onto his.
Or was I just a story you told yourself to feel powerful?
Silence filled the room. Not the kind of silence that brings peace, but the kind that exposes everything. Obinna opened his mouth, but no words came, because in that moment, he finally understood something he had refused to face all along. He had not loved two women. He had lied to two hearts. And now, both stood before him, holding the truth he could no longer escape. The days that followed were quiet, but heavy with consequence. Ngozi did not argue. She did not fight. She simply packed her things, slowly, deliberately, and walked away from the home she had helped build from nothing. There were no dramatic words, no final outburst, just silence, and the sound of a door closing on a life she would no longer accept. Zainab left too, but not quietly. She stood before Obinna one last time, her voice firm, her eyes no longer filled with admiration.
You didn't choose me,
She said.
you used me.
And with that, she walked away. Not broken, but wiser, stronger, done. Soon, the village began to speak. Whispers turned into conversations. Conversations turned into judgment. The man who was once admired became the man people warned others about. Obinna's name, once spoken with respect, now carried disappointment. And his compound, once full of life, laughter, and warmth, became empty, cold, silent. At night he sat alone. No laughter, no conversation, no one waiting for him, just the echo of his own choices. Because in his attempt to have more, he had destroyed everything that truly mattered. Moral lesson: a man who tries to hold two hearts with deception will one day stand alone with the truth. Because love is not built on secrets, it is not sustained by lies, and it cannot survive where honesty does not exist. What Obinna failed to understand is that love is not about how much you can take, but how truthfully you can give. In chasing excitement, he lost loyalty. In feeding desire, he destroyed trust. And in choosing deception, he shattered the very foundation of his life. Because when truth finally reveals itself, it does not break just one heart. It breaks all. Ngozi lost the man she believed in. Zainab lost the illusion she trusted. And Obinna lost them both. So remember this: honesty may be difficult, truth may be uncomfortable, but they are far less painful than the consequences of betrayal. Because in the end, a divided heart will never lead to a fulfilled life.